Well, hello there. Hello there, and welcome to, I should say something completely different, but I think I have used that phrase for basically every new Let's Play I have started. And I'm not sure where, and I know I said that also, but I'm not sure where this is gonna end, where it's gonna go. I have a very distinct plan with it in mind. This is, as you can see on the screen, and as you could also have read from the title, this is EVE Online. Now, EVE Online is a very special game to me, I should say. And I should also point out that this episode may only just cover my background in EVE and a character creation. I just need to cough real quick. So, give you a bit of a backstory, and there will be chapters in the description, so you can just skip this shit if you don't care. No, actually, I should start laying out what my plans will be for this series, if it's going to even be a series. I have no idea. I have seen over my past years of watching videos on YouTube, I have seen a lot of my the people I used to follow on YouTube. Some of them are not active anymore, some of them are. A lot of them have tried their hands at EVE, and I think a lot of them stopped playing EVE because of the sort of nature of the game and the fact that a lot of them ended up getting hunted down by players who wanted to appear in videos, or just, sniping their streams and things like that. I know there are a lot of successful EVE players on YouTube, but we will see how it goes. I mean, definitely if this ends up just me being killed all the time while trying to make videos and something like that, we'll see. I may just lean into that and just go full PvP. But my plan for this Let's Play is, of course, to make a character, get some skills, some ships, and then join faction warfare. Faction warfare is something that was introduced while I was playing EVE. I think let me just check, I think it was 2008, yeah, the Empyrean Age DLC, it was introduced. And back in 2008, I was pretty busy doing other stuff in EVE. But, so I never got to play faction warfare, but that is something that I will get into in this Let's Play if everything goes according to plan. I will try and make this as much of a tutorial as I can, and then you might say, oh, what the fuck experience do you have in EVE? Well, I started playing EVE in 2007, and I think we can just get into character creation while I talk about this. I first logged into the game in 2007, and I don't remember when. Let me actually just check how old EVE actually is. It is one of the oldest still running MMOs out there. EVE Online launch date. I maybe should have done my research before trying to do this. So yeah, EVE was launched in 2003 on May 6th. And as I said, I started playing it 4 years after launch. Back then I was playing mostly MMOs, almost exclusively. Played a bunch of MMOs. Started playing with a game called newcomer. Not sure if anyone watching or if anyone will even remember that game. But way back then, MMOs were a completely different kind of games. I mean, it were niche, and, it wasn't big companies like Blizzard and EA who wanted to make an MMO to become rich. It was just people wanting to make a special experience for players. But I played mostly PvP-based MMOs. And as I said, I got into EVE in 2007, and I think I played for maybe an hour, because back then there was no tutorial, there was no new player experience, as we will see from the beginning of this Let's Play. They have changed the new player experience a lot, dare I say. There's tutorials now, there is special agents We'll get into what agents are later, but there are special systems in place to help new players. I mean, back when I started playing EVE, you were just placed in a ship in space. You were told to target an NPC ship, destroy it. I think you were also told to mine an asteroid, and then you were told to dock at a station, and that was it. Then you was just left completely on your own, left to fend for yourself and figure everything out, and I had no idea how to do anything. So I played EVE for maybe an hour, tried to figure things out, and then I quit. That was my first quit. And I think EVE is perhaps the game that I have quit the most time and come back to the most time. But I think that's a sort of standard thing with people who play EVE. But I got back into the game maybe a half a year later. And my first couple of years, I think, of EVE was just a bit chaotic. I had no idea, still haven't figured the game out, still haven't sort of cracked the nut. It seemed like such a pretty vast mystery to me. I joined a couple of player corporations. Nothing really that worked out. I mean, they were all kind of facing the same problem with people who wanted to do a lot of things in EVE but had no idea how to do it, and kind of placed all of that responsibility on the members to achieve it. And so I just bounced a bit from NPC corps, and we'll get into corps later in the video. But I ended up just playing a lot of missions. I did a bit of a sort of piracy, high-sec piracy, being a bit of a bastard actually. Stealing mission items from other players, ransoming the mission items back, high-sec ganking, that's killing other players in high-security sectors. I got into a bit of piracy, but quickly left it since it was not something I wanted to do at the time. So I just ended up doing a ton of NPC missions, combat missions, and just making a ton of ISK and having nothing really to spend it on. Joined a few more player corporations. And then it got to the point I had quit the game and sort of come back at it at certain intervals during those years. But I then came to the conclusion that I would just quit EVE. I would just say, you know what, I'm fucking done with it. No more EVE ever again. And then I had the idea that I would join another player corporation. So I just had to cough there. I had the idea that I would join another player corporation and then just find someone in that player corporation that I liked, and then just give all my stuff to. Basically just transfer my entire account to that other player, give all my ships, all my ISK, all my items, everything to that player, and then just leave EVE and never come back. So I started looking around, and I ended up finding another of these sort of player corporations that promised, the world to its members. Oh, we will give you ships, we will train you. They also mentioned that they were a sort of training corporation, and when you completed their training course, you will be given a chance to join their low-sec, not their low-sec, their null-sec soft warfare corp. And I knew about soft warfare and sort of the general gist of it. I had never partaken in it at that point, but I knew roughly what it was. And I was like, oh yeah, sure, another one of these corps that just promises, stuff to new players and then never actually delivering. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to join that corp and just, find some poor soul who ended up being dragged into one of these corps and just give all my stuff to. And a very funny thing happened, and that was that this corps actually delivered very quickly. They had sort of fleet lessons. They had lessons in EVE and how to fly in fleet, how to communicate, how to scout, how to make sure you were safe in high sec, how to make a sort of a safe points in high sec. They taught me all kinds of shit I had no idea about in EVE, and they were some of the best players, some of the best people I have ever played computer games with. And so I had 3 months subscription at that time, at that point. So I just wanted to, play Eve, sort of on and off during those 3 months, find someone and give all my stuff to, and then just leave. But at the end of those 3 months, I ended up actually resubbing to the game because I had found a corp that actually not only delivered, but I mean, everything they said were true. They had a nullsec corp that dealt in soft warfare. And just the way that they structured these lessons, I mean, these were people who knew what they were talking about. And I ended up, as I said, I joined the Academy Corp and I graduated. I moved to nullsec. I fought in soft warfare. I fought in, I think it was called the Great Northern War, that unfortunately for me saw the collapse of our, at least, what's it called, alliance and coalition. So you have corporations, these are guilds in any other MMOs. Then you have alliances, these are corporations that have joined together to form alliances. And then you have coalitions. Coalitions are then alliances that have banded together to form a mega coalition of just alliances of maybe dozens, if not hundreds of corps fighting together for the same cause. And we were fighting under the banner of our corporation, and then we were fighting under the banner of, the alliance was called Mostly Harmless. And if any veterans from EVE is watching, they'll probably laugh because we had a sort of nickname among certain people called Mostly Useless. But for those initiated ones, you'll also know that Mostly Harmless is a reference to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, as I have talked about in other videos. And I just love Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and that just sort of cemented that I was in the right place in EVE at the time, being a member of an alliance that had all kind of, references to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But anyway, Mostly Harmless was a part of Northern Coalition, and we ended up in many years down the line from me joining, we ended up in a war that saw the collapse of Northern Coalition. And then everything from there just kind of went to shit, basically. I mean, Northern Coalition collapsed, a lot of the alliances in Northern Coalition collapsed, and our corporation was no different. There was some change in leadership, things got turned upside down, things changed. I ended up at one point returning to the academy. While stuff were getting figured out, I returned to the academy and actually served as an instructor for a few years in the academy, teaching new people how to fly in fleets, surviving in high sec, surviving in low sec and in null sec. So yeah, that's a bit of my background. I logged into EVE a few days ago for the first time in, I think, 3 or 4 years. And by the way, I should say this was back in 2015, I think 2013. So some 10 years ago that I served with that I did the soft warfare. I know a lot of shit has changed then. I have played EVE in between. I ended up, once our corp totally collapsed and it got closed down and people just scattered to the winds, I tried a bit of different stuff, got into tiny bit of wormholing and things like that, low sec combat. But I ended up joining another player corp where I served as an officer, as a board member for a bit, for a few years. Also I was head of training, so I kind of leaned into my experience as an instructor in EVE and kind of taught a few new players the ropes. And again, this was a corporation that had all kinds of crazy shit in mind that they wanted to do, but they had no real leadership. I mean, we were There was, of course, an overarching CEO, which is the leader of a corporation. And then we were, I think, 5 board of directors. And we were basically just left to fend for ourselves and just, I mean, some of us were aligned, but so for instance, I was a head of training. I tried to train people. I had a training regime put down with instructions, but the stuff I trained was getting undermined by the miners, the director of mining, and the way that he did stuff was getting undermined by the head of industry, and what he was doing was getting undermined by the head of combat. So it was just, and there was no sort of overarching leadership going through it. I mean, we were, I think we might have been 5 or 8 directors, and I know 3 or 4 of us was aligned, but the rest just did, whatever the fuck they wanted to do. So that completely fell apart also. That corp ended up getting sold. The leader just one day just sold everything in the corp. He cleaned out everything, sold everything to someone else, and we were just left to pick up the pieces. And I think that was I want to say that was in 2020. And then I just left Eve and haven't actually been back I might have logged on and off a bit in between those. But yeah, I logged in a couple of days ago and it must have been 3 or 4 years. And I was just filled with this sort of an almost kind of sadness because I started reminiscing. I started looking at my old character and the corp emails and the alliance emails and just sitting there being an old sad man reminiscing about stuff that used to be. But it was also a sort of very beautiful experience, I should say, just sitting there getting flooded by all these memories of just an awesome time in this game. And it got me sort of, what, I'm going to try and get back into Eve. I'm going to try and see if I cannot capture at least a little bit of that special times I had in Eve. And I will not be playing on my main characters. I want to keep them, at least for now, hidden. I will not divulge any names of the corporations I used to serve in, at least not at this time. I will not divulge any names from my main characters. I do not want to get hunted down in case someone watched this and want to kill me. I may try and get back into self-warfare at one point with my main accounts I have. They are not active. You can play the game for free. There are certain limitations. Then you are what's called an alpha clone. Then you have omega clone, and omega clone is when you are paying for the game. And there are different ways to pay for the game. You can actually pay with in-game currency and play the game fully. But I will be starting as an alpha clone, and all of my accounts are in alpha state. And I think I ended up having, 5 or 6 active Eve accounts, all paid for with in-game money, so it didn't cost me any real money to play the game back then. But I'll be starting an alpha clone. And as I said, I will try and get into faction warfare. We will see how it goes. I may end up... I know they changed a lot of things to faction warfare. You can actually join the pirate factions now. We might look to do that. But as I said, I'll try and make it as tutorial as I can, because I know that a lot of people, I should say, want to get into Eve, but have no idea. I mean, it's called the spreadsheet in space, Excel in space, and I can see why some people would make that reference, because it is a very daunting game, but it is also, it's actually a fairly simple game once you know what you're dealing with. It's just the way it's packaged it just seems so daunting and so overwhelming. So I'll try and do it as tutorial as I can, and sort of try and get back into my old ways as an instructor. And remember, this was 10, 15 years ago that I used to be an instructor in Eve back in those academy days. So I'll just return. I need to cough again. I don't know what it is with my throat and my nasal today, but I'll see you in just an instant. So there are 4 factions that you can join. And as a general rule of thumb, I'll be using that expression a lot. There are a lot of rule of thumbs in EVE. There are a lot of exceptions to those rule of thumbs, but there are some things that you can sort of go by. These are the 4 different factions: Minmatar, Gallente, Amarr, and Caldari. The difference is the type of ships they fly. They all have access to the same kind of roles and types of ships, but how they are equipped differ from these 4 factions. Now, one thing I should point out is it doesn't really matter which faction you pick, in the sense that even though you are Caldari, you can fly Gallente ship if you train them. You can fly ships from all the other factions if you train them. But starting as, of course, the Caldari faction, for instance, you will have access to some Caldari starter ships in terms of skills. You won't start with any ships, but you can train up to use the other ships. So the difference is the kind of weaponry and what kind of tanking these 4 factions like to do. So Minmatar, if I remember correctly, and unless they changed anything, Minmatar use projectile weaponry, being artillery or sort of miniguns, not miniguns, but Gatling guns. Basically just your straight up projectiles, firing a bullet through space. They also use missiles, and they can sort of split, I don't think it's 50-50, but they can go either armor tanking or shield tanking, and we'll get into that later. Gallente are almost exclusively armor tanking. Again, things might have changed, but I will just go for now with what it used to be. Gallente are almost exclusively armor tanking. They use hybrid turrets, being either blasters or railguns, and then they use a lot of drones. Minmatar, I think, also can use a bit of drones. Amarr have a little bit of shield tanking, a lot of armor tanking, and they use laser weaponry, either beam lasers, or I forgot the other. There are sort of 2 versions of each kind of turret, one being long range and the other being short range. There are, of course, differences in that. Blasters are much more close range than, say, Gatling turrets, and railguns are much more longer range than, say, beam lasers. And I think beam lasers are the long weapon version of the lasers. And I forget what the other type is. But Amarr also uses a bit of drones. Now, Caldari are almost entirely, I think they are exclusively shield tanked, and they use a lot of missiles, and they also use a bit of a sort of a hybrid turrets, being again blasters or railguns, and then also some drones here and there. And we will get into the difference between shield and armor tanking. So there is, of course, for me, I know what my favorites are, being Caldari and Minmatar. And I think my main is Caldari. I made a main, and I would say, as a sort of, again, general rule of thumb, if you want to go mostly PvE, and if you want a sort of easier start to EVE, I would go Caldari, because missiles are just, they are, in my opinion, easier to deal with than the turrets, because you just target and then you fire a missile, and if you are within range of your target, being how far the missile can actually travel through space, if you are within range, then your missiles will always hit. They will always do at least a little bit of damage, whereas turrets can miss completely. unless they change something, missiles, if fired within range, will always hit and deal at least some damage. So I'm not actually 100% sure. I haven't given this a whole lot of thought. I mean, Amarr is definitely my sort of least favorite faction. There's no reason, just, you know, just the flair of the faction. So yeah, the Amarr faction, as you can see, they have an emperor. They are very sort of religious. Gallente are a federation. They are a democracy. They have a president. Minmatar are freed slaves. They used to be enslaved by the Amarr, but have broken free. And Caldari are the sort of corporation state, not related to player corporation, but they are a sort of a faction ruled by its corporations. Their leader is also a CEO, so they are, I would say that Amarr and Caldari are maybe the bad guys. There are no real bad and good guys, but if you were to sort of, because they condone slavery and they want to enslave Minmatar, and Caldari because they are corporation based and they don't really care about personal liberty and things like that. All that matters to them is wealth and power and loyalty to the corporation, where Gallente, you know, try and free people. So I think I'll actually go with Gallente to start with, just for the sheer. Yeah, because I don't think I have actually started a Gallente character ever. I think it has only been Caldari and Minmatar and maybe one or two Amarr. I don't think I've ever actually started a Gallente characters. Now, to me, Gallente have, as a general rule of thumb, some of the ugliest ships in the game. They have, however, unless they change stuff around, they have, however, the best looking ship in the game. I don't think we will ever get to fly that ship, because that is a very, very end game. There are no end game in Eve, but it is a very, very many, many months down the line, maybe years before we can fly that ship. But yeah, I think I'll do Gallente. Yeah, let's actually do Gallente. So here you just get a quick look at the ships, and we can actually just take a quick look. So Minmatar is sort of, they have a slogan among the players, being "in rust we trust," because their ships just look rusted, and they look sort of haphazardly put together from all kinds of different trash. These are Gallente ships, and as I said, to me, they have some of the ugliest ships in the game. Not including the Megatron. I always thought that was a pretty awesome looking ship. Now, Amarr, however, I think have some pretty awesome looking ships. And of course, they took the most ugliest ship from the Caldari faction to actually show here. But yeah, this I still remember the first time I got to fly the Raven battleship. That was a milestone I will never forget, and just something that I had been working on for so long. But this was back in the Drake days, when the Drake, a battlecruiser, rules supreme. If any old Eve players, can I bring my Drake, will know that phrase a lot. So we can also just take a quick look at the weaponry. So yeah, they use missiles, as shown here, hybrid weapons, and shield tanks. Now, does it actually say? No, it doesn't actually say, but it shows missiles here, and they are most of the ships uses missiles. Then we have Amarr, yeah, energy weapons. I don't think it says. I know one of them is called beam lasers. I forgot what the other one is called, but yeah, they use energy weapons and armor tanking, blasters and drones, and armor tanking. There are some ships that you can shield tank, and we might get into doing some really funky loadouts at one point. But yeah, I have flown shield tanked Gallente ships before. And yeah, projectile weapons and shield tanking. But yeah, I think we will get into Galente. And this is just a sort of quick overview. It shows what the Empire enemy is and what the Pirate enemy faction is. And again, you can see here that Minmatar is in war with Amar. Their pirate enemy is Angel Cartel. Galente is at war with Caldari. And the Serpentis are their pirate faction. Blood Angels and, of course, Minmatar for Amar. And then Caldari have, of course, Galente and Goristas. So we will just get into Galente. Galente Federation. The Galente Federation represents hundreds of diverse peoples united by the ideals of freedom and democracy. The pursuit of innovative technologies contributes to the most advanced economy in all of New Eden. Our powerful fleet guards our world from tyranny. And then Empire enemy Caldari. The relentless hunger of Caldari megacorporations puts them at a clear odds with the Federation's principles, resulting in years of bloody conflict. We will not stand idle by as their policies violate the rights and liberties of individuals in rightful Galente space. Pirate enemy Serpentis. After splintering from a once respected Galente research corporation, the Serpentis amassed wealth and power by engaging in illegal narcotics manufacturing. Their alliance with other criminal enterprises makes them a formidable foe for the Federation Navy. So basically just a bit of background. I won't be reading all of this because I don't know what it is with my voice today, but I'll just leave this up real quick. Then you can pause. We may get into making characters from the other factions, and then I will, of course, read it. But yeah, let's just get into the Galente. And now this is a very important note, because this didn't used to be here when I made my characters back in the game. I mean, this was sort of a big mystery. What does these different sort of bloodlines do? They have no impact on your gameplay, and I really like that they write that here. That is just a character appearance. So there are the Intagi. The Intagi are one of the largest ethnicities of the Federation. Exceedingly gifted communicators, they are prominent among the federal bureaucracy. Yinmei are the latest addition to the Federation. They took to the stars comparatively late, as it took them generations to stop excluding qualified people through class-based discrimination. And then the Galente themselves. Galentians, is that how you pronounce that? Value freedom and individual liberty above all else. Founders of the only true democracy of New Eden. They have created an ethnically I have no idea how to pronounce that word now. Ethnically diverse, culturally rich, progressive society. Yeah, I'll just skip that word. We will go for the Galente themselves. And now this is something that has always brought me a bit of a chuckle, is the Eve character creator. Because, I mean, you have... What just happened there? Hello, game. Hello. Hello. Should we try that again, game? Okay. What is going on here? Okay, something is very, very strange. Okay, here we are. So, did I choose Galente? It doesn't matter, it's just appearance, but... It says Intagi. Oh, it's because it's... Oh, it changes them around. That's a bit annoying. Okay, let's go Galente. Okay. So yeah, as I was saying, a bit of a thing that always made me giggle is the character creator is perhaps one of the most advanced, at least at the time that it came out, it was definitely one of the most advanced character creators in a game. And it's in a game where you don't get to see your character basically at all. There used to be walking in station, but that was a huge failure and something that they probably never should have been working on. But yeah, I will just, I think I will just, okay, something is definitely going on here. Let me just check something real quick. And here we are. I don't know, I just thought that there is a daily reset of the server, and I think that might have been, I thought that was what was going on, but apparently it wasn't. But yeah, so as you can see from just randomizing, you can make very, and you can pull and change and do all kinds of crazy ass stuff to this character creator. Again, for a game that really has yeah, you look like a true badass. For a game where you don't get to see your character basically at all. Let's just know, we will definitely not do that. I don't want to spend too long making a character, so I think I'll just pause the recording here and I'll just return once I have made a character, because this could either take 5 seconds for me or it could take very long. I mean, just the fact that you have footwear and you never get to see the feet is just, I don't understand why. So let's just finish this up real quick. Body modification, piercing. So we can also go piercing. So yeah, there are a bunch of stuff that you can go through. No slips, tattoos, head. No. Could make it blind in one eye. No, that's just, I mean, as I said, I don't want to spend too long. And there's also a bunch of different clothing options that you can take. I think you can also buy clothing in-game for some weird reason. No, definitely not. And let's just go with what we had before, which was what? Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah, let's go with that. So, choose your education. Now, I am then not sure what these actually do. But you have the Federal Navy Academy, Division of Warfare, Federal Naval Academy. The Federal Naval Academy is the military training ground for all aspiring Gallente cadets. University of Cali. The University of Cali's School of Exploration is one of those most renowned graduate schools in New Eden. And then the Center for Advanced Studies. With a focus on research and development, the Center for Advanced Studies Industrial Institute produce future Gallente industrialists. We will definitely be joining the Federal Navy Academy. And for our name, and this is where I'll just pause the recording, because I have actually reserved the name when I logged back into EVE and I sort of did a bit of messing around and actually found out that I wanted to play this on the channel. I made a sort of just a character with just a name that I wanted to use because it was actually available. I had gone with both just a TBE Gaming, but I thought, no, that's not really a name I should use inside EVE. Not because of any sort of channel related stuff, but just because I don't think it's an MMO, and I want to at least have some kind of name that makes just a tiny bit of sense. So I went for the Bald Eagle, which is of course what TBE stands for in TBE Gaming, the Bald Eagle. And as you can see, if I just type the Bald Eagle here, oh, go away. Let me just do that. It will say the name is unavailable. So I will just very quickly pause the recording and go delete that character, and then this name should be available. So I will see you in just an instant. And as you can see here, the name is now available. I just deleted my old character. So let's just go ahead and enter the game. But before I press that button, because I think it will place us straight into the tutorial. So I will just end the episode here and sort of make this an introduction and character creation episode. And then I will, as I said, stop the recording, start a new episode, and then we can get straight back into the game. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for all the fish. Please take care of yourself, and hopefully I will see you in just an instant. Bye.